You know, I guess it's been about 2 years now. We had the pleasure of meeting Brother Yusef and his wife and his mom, and it's just been a pleasure. And so I reached out to him to do a Black Knowledge Matters. He's going to talk about Ngolo
Ngolo,
activating. Say again.
Ngolo.
Ngolo activating the self-healing power, wisdom, and insights from the Nganga na Djibouti program. So
Awesome.
that I know I destroyed that name, but I'm glad that he's here. And just before you start, Brother Youssef, tonight is Women of Wose, so let's try to end around 6:30 so that we won't infringe on their time. All right, take it away, my friend.
Certainly, thank you. And you hit that name, hit that nail right on the head.
All right, all right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we will get started. Again, and as we get started, as always, I will first ask for permission to speak.
Well, since I'm the oldest, no, I'm just kidding.
You do have the elders' permission. I will be glad to step up.
Asante Sana. Let me talk now a little bit about my intentions tonight. I'm going to be talking about a program that I've been a part of for 9 months now. And for me, someone who's worked in the behavioral health field for 23 years now in the direct care, mostly in direct care in the last few years, starting the process of completing my internship to become a therapist, and looking at the training that I've gotten both in the 23 years and especially in the last 4 years as I've re-entered academia and getting this education into clinical psychology. I will say at the outset, and hopefully you will begin to see why, I have been blessed to come across a group of people at the time that I did, so that I do not end up with my license and my doctorate without the knowledge and wisdom that has been given to me in this last 9 months. And so I want to talk about that. I will say a couple things again at the outset. This is 9 months in this program. You will see the master teachers who are part of this program, that I am speaking about my perception, my understanding, and my young understanding, although I'm not a young man, but my young understanding of some of these principles and the application of these principles. I feel confident in my understanding and application. However, there's still much more for me to learn and at much different levels. So again, any mistakes, misunderstandings are on my part. And these master teachers will hopefully, if they get a chance to read this, will not hesitate to continue to guide me and correct me. But I will do my best to give a very as close to what I've learned from these teachers about these principles and how it applies. My field is the broad field of psychology. But as I mentioned when I did a presentation before, my emphasis is in African-centered psychology, and grounded heavily in many of the master thinkers. But what you're going to hear now is really coming from the work of a group of individuals, really working out of a lot of the works of Baba Wade Nobles and Baba Lawford Goddard. And so I'm going to talk about this, a little bit about the background, but really what I want to get to is these 2 points. One, that African-centered psychology in all of its theory and philosophy and principles, it's powerful, but it becomes more powerful when we get to the application, when we get to the tools, the models that are useful for our community in this moment. This is what I've been given in this 9 months, the details and how to take these ideas and make them applicable. And the other piece I want to get across is just how central and how well placed that a place like Wolsey is, a community church like Wolsey is, to provide a large part of what is needed for our overall wellness and our health. And you will hopefully see that throughout this. As these principles come out, you will see that what has been created in Wolsey is already activating a lot of the things that we need to become well as a people. And so
can I ask, this is Kiswahili, the language that you're using?
yes, sir.
Okay.
So overview of the presentation, I'm going to talk about the Ngangana Djibouti program. Just briefly about what it's kind of brief part of its history, but just more, I'm going to talk about my experience within that program and what I'm learning from it, and how I believe to a certain degree it's been just in advance on all prior knowledge that I've taken so far. I'm going to talk about the paradigm shift that's happening in this program, how it's shifting the concepts of what we are to do as we sit alongside people in a healing relationship, in a supportive relationship, and how what we're attempting to do with those individuals is quite different than what I've learned in Western psychology as far as the goals. So we'll talk about that, and that's going to go into this idea ultimately of Ngolo, but of course, many more supporting principles. Going to talk also about the importance of worldview in the healing arts. And then we're going to go deeper into the principles around Ngolo. I will ask throughout, Minister Imhotep mentioned ending around 6:30. This presentation is really designed to for some feedback, for some discussion as well. So there'll be some questions that I'll put out to you all, because that'll also really benefit the deepening of this discussion. Okay. So let's talk about the program. The Nganga Nadabuti program was birthed out of the Institute for the Advanced Study of Black Family Life and Culture. And as you can see, the individuals here, Baba Wade Nobles, Baba Lawford Goddard, and Mama Theopia Jackson were the creators of this program. The idea of a community-based, let me move my thing, Nganga Nadabuti, formerly therapist in residency process. You're going to see that often throughout this, and it's key. When Minister Imhotep, you talked about, is this Kiswahili? The languaging and the emphasis in languaging, the emphasis in African concepts, and what that does is a major foundation of what these individuals have put into this program to help us think differently, to help us practice differently. And so just even that switch, therapist in residency, this is clearly in the Western tradition. The Nganga Nadabuti program and what we are is different. And I'm gonna explain what that means in just a second, but it's a powerful shift in our role from a therapist to an Nganga. And we'll talk about that soon. But it was created by the senior leadership of the Institute for the Advanced Study of Black Family Life and Culture. Again, that's Baba Wade, Baba G, Lawford Goddard, and Dr. Theopia Jackson. Dr. Theopia Jackson is also the chair of the clinical psychology program at Saybrook University, where I'm also pursuing my education right now. In three incredible human beings. My life, it's amazing that I did not know these individuals 4 years ago. But even in this 9 months, the impact that they've had on my life has been just tremendous. This initial implementation of this idea was conducted by the Bay Area chapter of the Black Psychologists. That's the building I'm sitting in right now. Through the clinical expertise of Doctors Tony Jackson and Sandra Smith. Dr. Jackson just walked out, as a matter of fact. But this program, if you've looked at the works of Baba Wade, or if you looked at the writings of Dr. Goddard, this, and as well as our other master teachers in the art of Saku or psychology, it is showing up over and over in our writings, and you'll see that throughout this presentation. But we also have...
Oh, wow. Mike Roosevelt?
Actually, yes, absolutely. Mike, as a matter of fact, he just left a little while ago.
We used to run track together.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, okay. I'm gonna stop. Wow.
Well, no, I love it because, and this is, a matter of fact, what you're pointing to, Minister Imhotep, is what is a huge part of the difference here. These are in Buddha in Nyakisis. If we were in the Western tradition, these would be our clinical supervisors, or that. Does not explain or express the relationships that have been set up between these powerful elders and us who are going through the program. And this is getting to the core, because even as you'll see when we talk about our relationship to the people we're supporting and serving within the community, that relationship starts here. And this relationship is not one of, all right, you're the clinical supervisor, I'm going to make sure you get this knowledge, I'm going to make sure you are writing your notes, and I'm going to give you that. Baba, Tony Jackson here to the right, Michael, Brother Michael, Baba Abner Bowles there, Sister Dr. Daktari on the bottom left, and Dr. Patricia. The relationship that's set is one of community, it's one of family, and this is why they're no longer simply our supervisors. These are our true guides through this process of discovery, the process of learning, and the process of the emergence of our spirit into this practice of Saku. And these are guides who are helping to initiate that journey for us. Baba Tony is my direct in Buddha in Nyakisa, but he's also my brother. And this, in my 23 years, this has never been a relationship that I've had with someone within this field of behavioral health. This relationship also is not just personal, it is spiritual, and it is grounded in building not only of me as an individual or me to get my license, it's in the building of our whole community. This is the environment that I walked into 9 months ago. Completely different than my previous 3 or 4 years in the university, in the academic setting, where I got some great information. But now there are people who are committed to the growth, my growth, as it leads to my dedication and support of the community. I'll pause for a second. Any questions? Right. I'll move forward.
I'm going to reserve my questions.
Okay. Then I'll move forward. We're going to talk about a few different paradigm shifts. And these paradigm shifts, again, shape what we actually do. So I want you now to think about the people you know who are in need of support, whether it is emotional support, psychological support, their thoughts, their ideas, their judgments, their beliefs, spiritual support. Think about these people and begin to think throughout this. What is offered to them to get that support within the system, and what you believe might be beneficial to them. As we begin to shift the paradigm in standard psychology therapy, psychotherapy, the focus is on the individual. The focus is on, how do I help you with your behaviors, you individually with what's happening with you? And we may bring in family, and we may bring in ideas around the environment and the community, but to the extent that we can see that impact directly on you as an individual and how we can help you as an individual shift your life to better function. We may use individual psychotherapy, or we may use group psychotherapy to help do that. The shift, though, that we're making is away from the emphasis on the individual. And the shift is now on community spiritual wellness. And with that, Baba Wade, Baba Goddard have introduced the idea of the interconnected rings of wellness. What this is saying is that personhood, familyhood, and neighborhood, or our peoplehood, are interconnected with our wellness, meaning not just that they influence each other, but that optimal wellness only occurs as each of these aspects are reaching their individual levels of wellness. And that, for example, the family cannot be well if the individuals in the family are not well. The individual can't be well if the family's not well. And if the neighborhood or the people are not well, then neither the family nor the person can be well. I'm going to talk about why this is so important, why this is such a huge shift from most forms of Western therapy. Personhood really focuses on those special, unique, or distinct personal attributes, characteristics, and quality. So that's what we focus on, that individual. Familyhood, though, includes a few different things. Those yet to be born, the living, and those in the afterlife. So now our ancestors, our responsibility to our posterity is now all brought present in the therapeutic relationship. Our understanding of family includes all of this. The defining, as it's been stated, the defining reality of African American familyhood is the result of both this African essence and its historical experience. The neighborhood and peoplehood. The identifiable connection defined by particular cultural affinity, our historical experiences, our worldview, our value systems, etc. Now, neighborhood can be a few blocks to a section of town, to a state, to the entire African world. What is being offered in this program and different is that as we now sit across from a person, what we're understanding now is that that person's wellness must include an exploration of how that person is connected or disconnected from all of these different areas of their life. Minister Imhotep.
So, I mean, there's a lot of disconnection in our community. How do you address, maybe you're getting to that, but how do you address those that are disconnected?
And we will talk about that. We're going to talk about the 8 disconnects, the 8 spiritual disconnects.
Okay, I'll wait until you get to that.
But a key point. This, as a matter of fact, the question you're raising is a major question that's driving the development and how this was actually brought together. How do you mend those disconnects? Okay. Worldview. Very general, basic definition of worldview. A worldview of people's most comprehensive idea about order and understanding, are the beliefs about nature, the nature of reality, and the meaning of being, the proper role of society, the way things are or should be. Very general definition of worldview. But let me ask a question now. This is where I'm going to ask for engagement here. What do you think the importance of worldview is when entering into a healing relationship with someone you may not know directly? What is the importance of their worldview, our worldview, and the way those worldviews connect?
I think it helps to answer for that person that you're dealing with. It helps to answer the question, "Who am I?" That's some of us don't know. I mean, in a general basic sense, and that's part of our problem. Malcolm said they don't hit us over the head because we're Christian or Muslim. They hit us because we're black. And in the same way, these lines that you have on the map, those are artificial lines, weren't there before 1884. And if we just deal with I'm Nigerian or I'm Ugandan, we kind of miss that too. I see Brother Keaty has his hand up.
So,
Yeah.
That's a very, very powerful question. A little bit intimidating, but that's what geniuses will put on the table for you to deal with. So I'm going to do my best to deal with it. I apologize that we'll have to duck out. I have a class to teach in just a few minutes. But again, the question is, what does a shared worldview or commonality of worldview have to do with rebuilding these relationships? Am I correct?
yes, sir.
Well, worldview is a product of culture and civilization. From my perspective, having a common culture, overlapping culture and/or civilization is always going to facilitate points of reference where we can now empathize, sympathize, collaborate, cooperate with one another. So that's the short answer to a wonderfully dense and complex question.
Thank you both. Absolutely. And let me ask this. What if our worldviews are in conflict? What if me, as the person in the role of the healing role, my worldview is in conflict with your worldview.
Dr. Yusef, before we get to that, Minister Bill has his.
Yes, Minister Bill.
Just a refinement of what Mr. Imhotep said. The idea is your worldview says, what is the globe? What is the map? Not just the geographic map, but the multidimensional map. Where are you spiritually, intellectually, and all the other things that make up a human? If in fact the therapist or aide doesn't know where that is, how can they possibly help you? If they don't know where they are, how can they possibly reach to you, toward you to help you?
Thank you, brother. Thank you, Minister Bill. This, and I see Brother Sebastian. I'll come to you 1 second, Brother Sebastian. That statement, Brother Bill, just to give an example, I've worked in, mostly locked settings for this 23 years. And I've worked with in these settings, some very caring people, incredible type of vision on what we're attempting to do in these settings with people. But if my reality, my worldview contains my ancestors, contains an immaterial world that's not seen, but the person, the therapist, the specialist, so to speak, their worldview says that is an automatic sign of a disorder. We see people beginning to work on people as if they're broken, when really what is actually happening is a clash of worldview. And as Minister Bill said, how can I even begin to help heal when that person, maybe even their strength, I am identifying as in a more intense part of their disorder? Brother Sebastian.
You guys are pretty much just taking the winds out of everything I was thinking about. But when you stated it, it says if we're in conflict, because we have different worldviews, that's exactly what's going to happen, is that there's a conflict that's already brewing. It's no different than, you're getting in a boat and everybody's got an oar, but everybody has different worldviews and they're rowing in different directions. The conflict comes about when someone's not getting enough drift in their direction. Now they pick the oar up and start knocking the next person across the head with it. So worldview is very important, because the system that you came up in prior to these 9 months, inside of the classroom setting, everybody was on the same page. But once you leave and you drive home into your own communities with different cultures and different worldviews, and when there's no communication, cross communications about these things, the only meeting place is the classroom in which you're getting there.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Thank you, Brother Sebastian. And you're getting to another point, bringing out a profound point too, or pointing towards it. There are many people who actually do not have conflict with the dominating worldview. They believe it, they hold it, they embrace it, they argue for it, they hold it up with pride that they can speak on it, that they have been benefited and got the job, got the degree, because they have been able to show, I got this down, I know it, and I live it, without realizing it is in conflict with who they are, in conflict with their spirit. Worldview is powerful in what it does, whether you're in agreement whether you're in disagreement, and or whether you have bought into something that is harmful to you. No different than if you love that alcohol, it's still killing you inside. Right? Worldview is key. To be able to address worldview as you address what healing has to look like, addressing worldview first is what has been one of the major roles of many of the master teachers and thinkers and writers in the African-centered tradition. Understanding the need to separate and to articulate the African worldview from the Eurocentric worldview. You see Baba Kobe Kambone there, one of our ancestors. I recently did the historical tribute to Baba Kambone, and I would love to come back, hopefully, and do a Black Knowledge Matter sometime in the future about his ideas in this field. This is what his breakdown, and there's several breakdowns of the differences between the African worldview and the Eurocentric worldview. The thing about these worldviews, it's very easy, and here I may expose myself for how I see culture and worldviews. And maybe it might be different from how some others see it. But the Eurocentric worldview, it makes sense for a people with that ethic, a people with that history, a people with that particular way of coming out of where they came from. It makes perfect sense. From a cultural standpoint, though, the understanding of what has worked for human beings early on, coming out of the earliest human groups in Africa, was an insight that our African-centered scholars, it was a brilliant insight of our scholars to say that if we are going to identify a worldview, two things must be a part of it. One, we must not just make it up out of thin air, but also it must precede the influences of the counter cultures, the contrary cultures, the cultures that are in direct opposition to those early human ways of building culture. And in doing that, our African-centered scholars went back to Kemet. And even before now, they went back and they identified, here are not just the principles and the aspects of worldview that we as a so-called race or culture should ascribe to. These are the foundations of all human civilization. These are the key principles that they saw at the core of the earliest human cultures, and that they saw spread throughout the continent. African-centered psychology, ultimately, and I'll make this statement here, we'll argue for it later, is at its core a human society, psychology. And it goes to the core of humanness, not just racial or Black racialness or that. It goes to the core of humanness. And we'll talk about that moving forward. But here's the key parts of the African worldview. Human nature is characterized by oneness. That health and healthy living is characterized by living in harmony with nature. It is emphasized on the survival of the group, including its inclusiveness and the synthesis of the self, of the individual self with the group. Cooperation and collective responsibility, as we also see in our Nguzo Saba. Spiritualism, circularity, complementarity and understanding, the emphasis on groupness, sameness, commonality, humanism, religion, and spirituality. These core pieces of the worldview now show up in what we're calling African-centered psychology, and in direct opposition to some of those key things in European psychology. For instance, the emphasis on the individual I talked about, individualism as a whole, survival of the fittest, the dichotomy between humans and nature and the material world, the control and mastery over nature. When that worldview dominates your psychology, you begin to look for evidence of those things as representing the healthy person, as opposed to looking at the African worldview and saying, these are the things that not only represent the healthy person, they represent the healthy family, which helps create the healthy person, and they represent the healthy neighborhood or people, the group itself, the culture. This is what health begins to look like. And why is that so important? Because and I mentioned this in the last time I spoke, there is no true concept of health, no clearly articulated concept of health in Eurocentric psychology, which is amazing, dominated by ideas of
disability. Wait a minute, say that again, say that again.
There is no clearly articulated notion of health, what it means to be healthy.
My goodness.
Unless you point to these things, these types of things here. On the contrary, we'll take the second one in the African worldview. Living in harmony with nature is both a goal and a sign that you are moving towards greater health. Maybe down the road, and I will be doing training with Mama Linda James Myers, optimal psychology. In a couple of months, I'll be doing the training there and come back and talk about her optimal psychology, where she lays out, it's all about, here is what a healthy person and community looks like. And this is where we should be putting our emphasis. And it starts with, in Mama Linda's view, our worldview. And so this approach, and I don't want to just keep beating this notion down, but this worldview approach is everything. And this is what's interesting. This is now showing up in the last 20 or so years in Western psychology and its failures that need to clearly articulate a worldview. Dialectical behavior therapy, or DBT right here, it's fascinating because it's a form of what's called cognitive behavior therapy. It's one of the most popular and influential forms of therapy out there now in the Western world. But the creator of this form actually put together in one chapter of her book, the worldview. And when you look at that worldview, it blows your mind. It is essentially a Buddhist worldview of probably the most successful form of therapy to help people with pretty certain types of suicidal issues in the Western world, and or those what we call parasuicidal behaviors, cutting themselves, harming themselves, those self-harm behaviors. This has been shown to be successful. But what did she say is at the core of it? It is essentially Buddhism. She has taken that worldview, an ancient worldview, and says we need to ground Western thought in this ancient worldview, this ancient way of seeing this, and all of a sudden we can have progress with a group of people that not only was never able to really make progress with this population, but that practitioners pretty much hated working with, refused to work with. By bringing in these Buddhist principles, all of a sudden, this group of people, in the Western world, largely Caucasian women, were able to be reached with this different worldview that guided a lot of the same types of interventions, but it shifted them, it changed them. When we take this same thing and we say, well, what we're not going to do is just try to take those principles and mold it into a modern Western idea, strip them of their true healing potential. Baba Wade, Baba Goddard, this program says we're going all in to an African-centered reality. And we're going to ground everything we do in that reality. And as we come, this program is in Oakland. We are already working with people, direct people of our community in Oakland, with these principles guiding us and seeing results that are just astonishing to me. In the same way, when they do it in the Western side and they take these notions and do it, what do you think is happening when we take them and we try to get them in the purest form possible for the community that we're serving?
Got a question?
Yes. Yeah. Please, absolutely. What do you think is the impact that we're seeing when we're using these principles and we're trying to use them in their fullness?
I think that you're reaching people. I would say that if you're using things that are not necessarily in the Western paradigm, you're reaching people. I see Minister Bill has his hand up.
I expect if you're not just looking for known diseases, if you're looking for something whole and healthy, then that will show up things that wouldn't show up with just a sort of pinhole view of just diseases.
Beautiful. Absolutely. Absolutely. I am now orienting myself to a spirit who comes with experiences that I understand, that I've experienced, that are not disordered, with behaviors that are not disordered. They are absolutely reasonable ways to address the chaos and the insaneness of the systems that we live under. I can understand that. I can see strengths where other people only see weakness. One individual I'm working with right now, he calls himself a street brother. He's been in the street since he was 18. He's been hustling since he's there. I have nothing but deep respect for it. And I did not have to judge all of that. I begin to understand and I begin to see the strengths in how he has managed this. But I also immediately begin to see the relationship of his life, the relationship of all of our lives, the relationship to the systems of oppression, the relationship to the history of our trajectory into this particular society. I can see all of that and not determine that this is all a disorder that he has there. Brother Sebastian.
You know, it's interesting when earlier, you were mentioning that sometimes people don't know what they don't know. And the person's got the job and they're happy about having that job. But when you tap into that spirit, because they grab the adulation of acquiring that job or this place in European society, and our spiritual connection has been calcified, making that chase. So once you make that spiritual connection with them, and it's in them, they just it's been filed away so deep that now you're tapping into that. And a lot of these things that was it Brother Kaban was saying in terms of this the world view. Um, Dr. Marimba Ani speaks of all of those things in Urugu.
Yes, sir.
You know, so yeah, all of that right there.
Yes. Thank you for that. And it's so amazing because we will ask ourselves about the things that, again, the things we do not to become healthy, but to pacify our pain, to pacify our disconnect from our spirit, the drinking, the spending money, the emphasis on materialism, the sexual exploits, the watching of TV and social media, all of these things that we're doing. Some of those things, again, are rewarded. They're acted as normal. But even us, if we have a moment of self-awareness, we know we're not healthy. Even when we may be, hey, you're making that money, you got that respect in there. But if you had that awareness, you're like, something is missing. Something is deeply missing. What Ngolo, that we'll be talking about in a second, it begins to activate what is missing from us and what our spirit and what us as human beings have always done. There's no accident that human beings dominate the earth in these ways and that. There's a part of what we are and who we are that when activated, human beings can get through almost anything. We as a people have demonstrated that over and over again. And it is our being in touch with the spirit, being in touch with the creative potential, taking even those Western views and those Western thoughts, but knowing at the core of it, we are holding on to our spirituality at the bottom of it, and our spirituality shows up. It is what activates or what connects us back to something within us about what we are that helps keeping us become stronger, more resilient, and healthy throughout.
I need to take a class.
Man, I'm telling you, listen, today we just had 3 hours on comedic healing. Where are you going to get this in a program in so-called psychology? And we were talking about the deep, ancient practices. And I'm just sitting there just like, this is amazing. And we are now charged to take these practices and engage with our community, right? To use them ourselves, to engage with our families, my children, my wife, my mother, to engage and to embrace these towards overall health of the individual, the family, and the community. Let's talk about Ngolo. Ngolo is the energy of self-healing power and potential. The creative life force that exists in all of us. As part of the Creator is a life force that grows, persists, a life force that creates, Our bodies, our minds, our spirit are made to self-heal. When we give it what it needs, both the body and the spirit. Ngolo is that energy. It is the essential act of personal and collective preservation and actualization. It is that action, that activity, that power that moves towards the preservation. It is what you don't have to teach an infant. It is what that infant is born with, moving towards its mother, moving towards its nourishment, moving towards the activities that strengthen it. It is born with that individual. Ngolo is part of us. It's part of every living thing. Ngolo requires that one value and treasure another with caring and affection, sustaining, promoting, nurturing, and inspiring their perfectibility. And why is that? Because the same creative potential, the same Ngolo that is in you is the same that is in all of us. And because it's not about me and my self-healing, remember that individualism, this is about Ngolo healing me, my family, my neighborhood, my people, and activating it always in that connection. I cannot activate the self-healing power without understanding that the self is a collective self, not an individual self. I must activate it with the notion that this is something that has been given to me by my ancestors and by the Creator through my ancestors. How? Now this is, I just want to say, this is as a psychologist, we have been taught, and whether the field says it or not, there's different models. They tell you really are the one that is leading the healing of the so-called client. When you sit across from them, you're listening to them, you're diagnosing, you're assessing, and then you're helping to come up with a plan, and you're supposed to lead this and lead their healing and the processes of intervention so that they can manage their symptoms or get better. Ngolo, completely different paradigm. I am now just one of those same guides to help that person recognize their own self-healing potential, not to take on or assume or presume that I can heal you. As a matter of fact, Baba Abner Bowles, who's one of our leads here, he points out that the most important way that we as Ngangas help someone Ngolo begin to activate their own self-healing power, one of the best ways we do that is helping them to understand their impact on us and their ability to heal us in this relationship. It's wild. The person who is coming from help, for assistance, we begin to acknowledge that them as a member of their community through their resilience, through what they've gotten, through what they're showing us, what they're demonstrating, the power that they have on us. The person I mentioned before, what he's been through, he has helped me become stronger. The way he's gotten through it, I see a strength in him, a power in him that I said, And I tell him that what you just said, that is wisdom for me. How you got through that, that's wisdom for me. That's his Ngolo activating. That sometimes what we would call problem behaviors, all of that type of stuff. Sometimes that's someone's Ngolo healing, coming online with the intent to help that person get through whatever type of insane situations that have confronted them in their life. Our goal is just to recognize that and bring their awareness to it. But how also do we help that? This is the notion of Zola. Zola is a radiant energy that activates Ngolo. It is the energy that attracts and seeks connection. It seeks oneness. Is self and collective cherishment. In other words, Zola is love. And when we talk about love, it's not personal, individual love. It is the type of love when we talk about, think about attraction. Think about the natural, unexplainable attraction that a parent has for their child. Think about when you saw that person. When I saw my wife, when I was 17 years old, she walked into the school. First time I saw her.
Wow.
I went and told my friend, I said, I just saw the girl I'm going to marry. 17 years old. That energy, that attraction, that's Zola. That is spirits linking, pulling towards each other. As a Nganga, part of my role is to present, manifest Zola in our relationship. When you talk about a phrase that's thrown out there and made weak, when you talk about unconditional love, but it's between two people, not between two spirits, right? It's hard to be unconditional when it's two people. But my spirit connection with another spirit is a natural connection. There's a natural attraction. And when I don't allow the world to get in the way of that, then that attraction is full, what we would call the electromagnetic, as Dr. Nobles calls it, the electromagnetic correlate of love. I'll pause there. Any questions about this? Comments?
I just had a question. I see in your references, but I heard you mention earlier Saku. So do you use Dr. Noble's book as references, Seeking the Saku?
Yes, sir. And we use that, but we also use the book that we are studying from closely is the one that just came out in 2023. It is really Saku, From Black Psychology to the Science of Being. That book is that fuller expression of that paradigm shift of what is different. We're moving away from psychology. This is saying that what we are now presenting is a true healing set of healing practices that are grounded in the African science of being, what it means to be human, what it means to be us. We are now grounding our healing practices in that idea of the Saku. And Saku, separate from psychology, the meaning, the study of behavior or the study of that. Sakul relates to the spirit and the spirit's manifestation and emergence in the material world, and what happens to the spirit in its emergence in the material world, the types of things that we will label as trauma, the types of things we'll label as benefits, the type of things we'll label as pleasures, and all of that as the spirit engages, and what leads to optimal health and what leads to challenges with that spirit's full expression and coming to fruition in the material world.
So I know Zola, it's a different term that I am just not. Is that connected to or part of Pinda?
I am not sure, Minister Imhotep. That's just something that I'm just not sure. I hadn't heard that term. So
Pinda is like you would say Nakupenda. That would mean I love you in Kiswahili. You know, so that's what I'm.
I would say it's similar to that, but look at it more from not the cognitive side of it, but from the natural. Like I said, I didn't think, oh, there's a cute girl down there. Oh, I would like.
Right.
Something came over me. The attraction was beyond words.
Sure.
And even when I say I love you, it doesn't quite
Cover it. Yeah.
cover the Zola experience.
We have a hand, Brother Katabasi. Oh, he
Yes,
was.
good evening, everybody. Brother Yusef, thank you for coming and bringing your knowledge and information. The question that I have is, along with the development and the evolution of these uh, concepts in psychology, and the fact that you indicate that it involves the healing of the self and the family and the community. Are you also evolving strategies for getting it out into the community? These are ideas that are, for the most part, a little different from what most of us have been subjected to.
Yes, sir. And thank you, Brother Katabazi. And it's wonderful seeing you.
Good seeing you, my brother.
Yes. So first, I can answer that in several different ways. This program itself is designed to do that. It is actually putting us again directly into the field, working with people, working within the systems. I'm working within some county systems right now and bringing these ideas. I have chosen to bring these ideas to the community of which I have been privileged to be a part of, we'll say. I'm spreading them through my work, but the program that and the where Baba Wade, Baba Goddard, they have been on the process of, and if you, I don't want to go too deep into that because I would love to see if one of them would come on and talk about how they are working with the County of Alameda and where that stands right now to put together the wellness hub where this is going to be a major part of the health system within this area. Excellent. And spread throughout the community. And I think from community to community. And we'll see what the nature of our current administration and where the world has come in the last 8-10 years.
True.
The challenges to that. But that just means we have to dig down deeper and fight much harder because there's so much for us here.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And Mama Saraswati?
Thank you. This is wonderful. So about maybe 4 years ago, yoga organization that I belong to came up with this health educator program. And the reason I signed up for it is because they were going into hospitals and working with doctors because they started finally to realize that wellness was not just something that they could do with a pill or a knife. And so we came in, no, not we, the program itself is looks at a person physically, spiritually, and emotionally. And that is the thing that the health educator is supposed to bring, which is different. I am still in the process of this course, but I decided that I also wanted to pursue the yoga of addiction. And so one of the first things that they tell us is the opposite of addiction is connection, which is, I think, very much along the lines of developing that sense of community. I've struggled with their interpretation of connection, but this makes it so much more in my worldview.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say I appreciate this, but I also know that the health education movement is really taking off in many different ways. But I think it's because, you know, they really have no other it's clear that it's just not about the pill or the knife. Thanks.
Yes, yes. Thank you for that, sister. And the point you're making, the several points you're making are key behind this. And part of that change, I mentioned dialectical behavior therapy at the beginning, making that change. The studies have shown that the medicine and all that is not enough, that it's not helping. But where the change is really coming, this is fascinating from the capitalism perspective, the insurance companies are saying, this is so much more effective when we begin to add in these ancient practices. We save money. These insurance companies begin to save money because people actually start getting healthier, because we start addressing so much more of the total person and all of the factors that are leading to what are sometimes described as disorders. It's the other piece, the fullness of it. And you mentioned how you, part of it, like the connection and that part of it, you can get to. And part of the way they're describing it is not fully in your worldview. Today, there was a discussion by the sister. She was out of Ghana, and she talked about yoga. And she talked about the fullness of yoga. And she said, yoga, of course, is not just, and I'm sure you know this, it's the full package of the movements, but the worldview behind it, the readings, the sacred scriptures that help give the meaning behind this, and the sounds, the movement is all of this that really is, that gives it the fullness of its healing potential. And so much of that has been stripped out in some of these approaches that we have, right? But even giving just parts of it, we start seeing people getting healthier. And in this training that I'm getting, Baba Wade and Baba God are trying to give us the fullness. And I thought I was going to have a hard time getting to 6:30, but I will move through this. Here's part of the.
We'll just have to do a part two.
I would love to.
That's what we'll have to do, because these are very profound things that you're dealing with, and you just can't gloss over them. And I'm looking at people's faces, and they're taking it in. And a lot of this is new, but a lot of this is familiar because this is something that they've always felt. So I like the pace that you're going. We got about 15 minutes right now left, and so maybe a couple more slides and see if we have any questions, and then we can do a part two.
Wonderful. Thank you, Minister Imhotep. I want to talk about then the relationship I've talked about this already a little bit, but want to talk about the languaging and the relationship that I've been privileged to hear and to learn from, that has so profoundly changed my relationship with the people I'm sitting away from. I've always heard that we call them the people we're working with. It used to be clients. There's been times we call consumers, and now people are saying the individuals we are serving. All of these ways. In this program, the term is Bwana Mbodi. I am now working with the child of my ancestors. This is my relationship now to you. We are family. We are a people. I can't tell you what this did, this seemingly small change in language, what it immediately did as a so-called therapist in sitting down, and what it crumbles, all that learning that it immediately crumbles and said, that is not useful, that is not helpful, and that cannot be a part of my relationship of working with the child of my ancestors. What we are, and it's the Nganga na Djibouti program. Our title now is Nganga Inkisi. When I graduate this program in a few months, I will be an Nganga Inkisi. That is a mediator between the visible world and the invisible realm of the spirit and the ancestors. I am to help that person and work with them as they engage, and sometimes with the same realms that we all are engaged with at all times, and sometimes not aware of, and help them bring their awareness to this exchange of energy between these different realms, and their spirit's attempts to emerge in its fullness, and the barriers to that. That is now my role in my relationship with the Bwana Mbodi. The relationship is one of interdependence. I briefly talked about this. Again, this is us, we, working on the collective wellness and health of our families, of our community, in this relationship with us. Yes, Minister Imhotep.
So, Bwana, so that's a word that means like sir, or so can you translate? So it means, so in this context, it means the child of my ancestors. Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and actually it's that might change. There's been early discussion when I first got in the program that it should be Mwana with an M instead of a B.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes. So we're going to be getting more information on that. The other parts of this paradigm shift, and I may stop right at this slide. The other part of the paradigm shift is the understanding of the role of the ancestors in these relationships, and whether or not, however you look at them, whether that is metaphorical in the sense that it's in our DNA, it's in our practices passed down, it's in what we've witnessed from our parents and our aunts and our uncles, our grandparents, that's how our ancestors show up in everything we are, or whether it is your belief that our ancestors are alive in the invisible realm, in the spirit realm, and that they can be called to be here with us, and that there are some that are always with us in this realm, even when we don't know. They're there guiding, protecting, suggesting in the background. However you look at that, in this, we begin to help those individuals understand and explore the role that the ancestors play in their life now and throughout their life. Brother Sebastian?
Yes, you might have answered this question, but as a psychologist, um, psychologists also, well, no, let me ask, do psychologists also have to go and debrief with other psychologists?
Psychologists, when they are practicing ethically, they are getting consultation from others.
Okay. And because they're taking on so much from their client. But in Angola, you're guiding um, and helping to activate the person's self-healing qualities. But then when you transition into the Ngaga Nkisi, then now you're tapping into the spirit of the ancestors anyway. So you're getting your counsel from that spirit then, right?
Wonderful, profound, and very subtle insight there. Absolutely. And this is that relationship. Again, it's different. As the ancestors speak through them, there may be, and generally is, something there for me. Right? Absolutely. And in this practice, again, and I'll be clear, the Western paradigm, and this is again where I may be separate, in its context, the Western paradigm and Western psychology, depending on how it is practiced and how it was come about, it can either really have been focused like its early history and a large part of its history now in very limited demographics. It's focused on white males with certain social, and they were the standard. But psychology, Western psychology, can focus on the culture or different parts of culture at a certain time and say, this is what the nature of reality is. And so psychology itself, Western psychology, has shifted and had competing different views as far as the nature of the human being in that. And Western psychology, in its best, has brought awareness to some human factors and aspects that will benefit all humans. I do not just wipe out like Western psychology. No, there are moments and aspects where it's uncovered things that can benefit all of us. And on the other side, what we're attempting to do, the Ngangas, is add in and bring awareness to a reality that just because you say this is reality, just because you assume this is reality, we don't have to buy that. We don't have to assume that. And we know that your assumptions, we know that the underlying claims of your worldview are on no sturdier ground than our claims. And I would even argue that historically and humanly, I can argue that our claims are stronger. Minister Imhotep.
Are you aware of Sigmund Freud's desk and what was over the couch where he was psychoanalyzing people?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And we should talk about that at one point.
Yeah.
And especially with the scientific notion of entropy, that the way in which Freud kind of did that is like this was some of the primitive insights that are really shown through some of these things, where in reality, the notion of entropy is that nature moves toward less power and order and energy. It disperses. Those early insights of the early humans were some of the most powerful insights into the universe. And so I would love to talk about Freud and his complete, that's when we talk about the racial white male focus and belief and grounding, this is that group. Definitely that group.
Yes, yes, indeed. We got about 4 minutes, and wow, I had no idea this would be so heavy. I knew that it would be profound because it was coming from you, but this is something that you really need to meditate on and chew on, and we need to have a part two to this, coming back and getting into this. I don't know what your schedule is like, when you would be able to join us again, but this has been a very profound session. And again, it gives credence to the title, Black Knowledge Matters. And give thanks for that, my friend, Dr. Yusef. I know that you're on your way to being a doctor, but I'm just going to say it already. Dr. Yusef.
Well, well, two things. One, I appreciate that.
Uh-huh.
There's no higher title for me than Brother Yusef.
All right, Brother Yusef.
And two, if I could just say this real quick, I know we got to get off. But ultimately, as far as community building,
yes,
and what this means, and as we begin to take our Bwana and Bodhis and have them build the community, I just want to say this, and I would love to do a part two, but we'll say has already provided the foundation that can support the wellness and the growth of the wellness. It's built upon these principles. It is the place that we need to have support groups, the place we need to have seminars and discussion groups and trainings with the community, because it's already positioned as the leader in health and wellness.
Oh, give thanks, brother. Brother Yusef, we're striving to do that. I just want to show one thing before we go, before we transition to our next. This is Mike Roosevelt in the center. We're running at San Francisco State, and we just had come around the turn, and looks like Mike might win this race. This is we're running the 400 meters.
That is wonderful.
Yeah.
That is wonderful.
That's how far I go back with Mike Roosevelt.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Stop laughing at me, Michaelis. All right.
Yeah, well, Brother Yusef, indeed, it has been a lot to take in, and if most people are like me, we're really looking forward to part two, because you've really ignited a lot of thoughts and a lot of insights, and I'm so happy that you involved in this work and you've taken it on and moving in the direction that you are.
Thank you.
I knew you were going to bring it. I knew you were going to bring it. I told you, I said, I'm waiting, I'm ready, and all of that. I need you to check your schedule, real, soon, so we can have the second part. Because we don't want to wait too long. We don't want to wait too long.
And Imhotep, I wasn't laughing at you. I was laughing with you.
And Brother Yusef, these insights that you've given us are were a session in healing in and of themselves tonight. Thank you very much.
And thank you very much. Very interesting. Wow, you great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So we're going to get together, Yusef, and schedule part two. This was very profound. All right. It is 6:30, and I'm going to switch everything over to Mama Connie. There's just one more. Let's see, a couple of things here in the chat. So somebody said, "I wish I hadn't come in late," and then somebody said, "I wish." I'm definitely looking forward to part two, and I want to watch part one again, and then our newest uh, Jesu said, "I'm impressed and astonished at the Black knowledge shared." Thank you. So give thanks for that.